going to talk about Connecticut's wineries tonight. And the first question I like to ask of my audience, and I know we're in a virtual environment, so I can't really ask you to raise your hand because I probably can't see most of you. But I guess I'm curious, how many of you have been to a winery or vineyard in Connecticut? So keep that in mind as we're talking. And if you have any questions regarding visits that you might have had, great. And otherwise, I hope that I will introduce you to things you didn't know before about Connecticut's vineyards and wineries. So I'm going to talk about what I'm going to talk about. That's the first thing I'll introduce you to. So let's keep on moving forward. So tonight we're going to discuss a little bit about my background and how I got into this gig, my travels in Connecticut's wine country, helping you plan your visit to Connecticut wineries even if you've been to them before, talking about the differences between the Connecticut Wine Trail and the Passport to Connecticut Farm Wineries program, events, clubs, and how to get involved, supporting local, secret wineries, few resources, and Q&A. Sounds like a lot, but we're going to breeze right through it. So a little bit about me and how I got into this gig. So I had the great opportunity to write, or I was considered a blogger for the Connecticut Wine Trail in about 2016 to 2017. It was a great experience, had a lot of fun, met a lot of wonderful people in the Connecticut wine country. I'm a writer by trade and by education, and I'm a wine enthusiast and small business supporter. But that doesn't answer the question how I got into talking to everyone at libraries about Connecticut's wineries. So it's a very short little tale. I was looking for a new job a few years ago, and I brought my resume to my local library. They had a person there who was looking over resumes, and they said, "You wrote for the Connecticut Wine Trail. You want to talk about it?" And so that began my journey. I talked at my local library, and then they referred me to others. And since 2019, with a little blip in the middle of 2020, I had the great pleasure of talking to various people throughout Connecticut about the wineries. So what I'm going to do in the next few slides is I've grouped 2 wineries at a time. There are over 40 wineries in Connecticut, so I'm not going to talk about all 40 because I know you all have other things to do this evening. So what I've done is the 2 wineries that I'm talking about on each slide are grouped by region, if you will. So they're within about 15 or 20 minutes from each other. So if you were to visit one and you wanted to go to another, you have an idea of what's nearby. So Preston Ridge Vineyard is in Preston, Connecticut, and these are shoreline vineyards, by the way. And the reason I have the picture on the left is because when I visited Preston Ridge a couple years ago, I was there with a friend and we were at the tasting bar. And Megan behind the tasting bar said, "Are you visiting any other wineries today?" And I hesitated and I kind of was like, yeah. And I thought, oh my God, I know Megan. I'll offend her if I say I'm going to another winery. And she's like, not at all. So she took those 2 corks and she wrote, I guess it says happy Saturday and sunny days. I don't remember which cork went to which winery, but I dropped them off at those wineries. And it was Megan's way of saying hello from Preston Ridge Vineyard. So it shows that wineries, even though they all are own small businesses, they do support each other. Saltwater Farm Vineyard, on the other hand over here, is in Stonington, Connecticut. It's about 20 minutes from Preston Ridge. And it is an old World War II airplane hangar. Hey, I said that that's hard to say. It's a beautiful property. It's along the coastline of Connecticut. They have lots of different wine to choose from, reds, rosés, whites. However, to tell you all, since it is winter, both Preston Ridge and Saltwater Farm Vineyard are closed at the moment. They'll open again in spring. However, Saltwater Farm Vineyard has started doing what they call pop-ups, and they will, on a nicer weather day, which we've been having a couple of those here and there in Connecticut, they've been doing an opening where they'll have live music, and they'll invite people to come and bring their picnic and enjoy the wine and listen to the music. So if you go to their website, you can subscribe to their newsletter, and they send emails about it, or on their social media, on their website, they let people know when the pop-ups are going to be. So if you're in Connecticut and you want to maybe visit them before they're fully open in the spring, check out their social media and website. Okay, so now I'm staring at a map of Connecticut. So if you see me glancing off to the right, lived in Connecticut my whole life. And I'm like, okay, where are these located? So I'd say this is sort of the middle of the state, kind of close to where I am. Paradise Hills Vineyard and Winery is in Wallingford, Connecticut. And that is a picture of the, obviously, outside of the building. The Ruggiero family runs and owns it, and they are an Italian family. So it's sort of an Italian style villa. They have lots of live music and entertainment, lots of Valentine theme events coming up. Beautiful property. They actually have sparkling wine besides reds, whites, and rosés, and not all of the wineries have that. So I like to mention that. It's very good sparkling wine, by the way. So the picture down below of the beautiful outside of Paradise Hills. Now, I want to tell you all, I did not have too much to drink, but I did go to the winery one winter evening. So it's kind of apropos of the time of season we are at now. And I hadn't seen the fellow behind the tasting bar before. He wasn't familiar to me, and I hadn't had a tasting in a while. So I went up and had a tasting. And during that time, the gentleman took the glass of wine that you see there, and he rolled it across the bar. And I kind of had a little bit of a heart palpitation, but it landed just fine. And it was a fancy way of aerating the wine. Instead of swirling it around in your glass, he rolled it across the bar. He said, please don't do this at home. I have not, because I like my glassware. Anywho, the reason I tell you this story is because sometimes you've been to a winery before and you think, I know what wine I like. I don't need to try anything. Sometimes you might be surprised by the experience itself for those places that are still having tastings where you get to interact with the tasting bar. So just keep that in mind. Rosa Bianca Vineyards is in Northford. It is about maybe 15 minutes, might be just about 10 minutes from Paradise Hills. The one thing I like to mention is they are in Northford. As Lisa Rosa Bianca likes to say to me, people come to me all the time, she says, and they ask why I can't find you in Wallingford, because we're not in Wallingford. So they're, I think, like a little hamlet of Wallingford. So they're very nearby, and it's a little confusing sometimes, but they're in Northford if you're looking for them. Beautiful property. They actually have expanded their indoor tasting room. So now during the winter months, you can come there and have some wine. They're only open Friday night, Saturday, and Sunday, as opposed to Paradise Hills, which is open all week long. Okay, so now I'm taking you to two wineries kind of on the, let me look at my map, the western end of our state. Walker Road Vineyards is in Woodbury, Connecticut, and Hawk Ridge Winery is in Watertown. They're about 15, 20 minutes from each other. And Walker Road Vineyards holds a special place in my heart. Jim Frey and his wife, Bruce Elizabeth, they own it, run it. They have no staff. It's just the two of them. He's the winemaker, and I always say she's the historian. And the reason I say that is because I put the picture from their website of the 5 bottles of wine that they have. When I visited them years ago, they had 1 red and 1 white. Well, Jim and Bruce Elizabeth came to my talk at the Woodbury Library back in the fall, and he joked and said, yeah, we've expanded a lot, a whole 5 wines. But I said to him, it's not about quantity, it's about quality. The wines are very good. When you go there, you feel like you're in your living room almost. You just feel like you're home. They welcome everyone, they chat, they're so passionate about what they do. The labels all have sort of a history, and Bruce Elizabeth will be happy to share why they're named what they are named and what the labels mean. So I definitely encourage people to go visit them. They're smaller. They are not open right now. They're only open in the spring through next winter, early winter. They closed in December, but it's a beautiful property, great wine. They've expanded their outside seating as well for the warmer months. Definitely go check them out. Hawk Ridge Winery, who they are good friends with Walker Road. They're just a tad bit bigger in expanse, and in wine selection. They're a place that holds a lot of events. The events manager there, I know him. He's great. He really makes the experience for people when you visit a great time. So I definitely recommend checking them out if you're in that area, and you won't be disappointed. Okay. Now I'm taking you again, sort of, I want to say, look, I'm looking at my map again, western end of Connecticut, maybe more northwest at this juncture. So I went to Spring Hill Vineyards in New Preston a few years back, and they weren't serving wine. So I was a little bummed because they're an hour and 15 minutes from where I live. So you see that lovely Airstream there. Well, it was not open the way you see it there. So eventually I did get back and I did get to go, and it's a great property, beautiful, not open right now. So sorry. But they are Spring Hill Vineyards, but they are also the Spring Hill Arts Gathering. So they call it SHAG. And that big tower that you see there, that is an art installation. You can go up inside it. Someday I will when it's not too warm. And they have other beautiful art installations. They have a big garage that is renovated. They have music and concerts and lots going on there. So what happened is when I came the first time, they're having an event, therefore no wine. However, I did get back the next summer, and therefore you see those photos. But the happy accident of me going to Spring Hill and them not being open was that I discovered Hopkins Vineyard and Winery in Warren. I shouldn't say discovered, it's been around a long time, but I had never been. And I was so sad that I had never been until then. So now I was telling Catherine earlier, it's one of my favorites. It's a great place. The owners, not unlike Walker Road, they make you feel like you're at home. If you haven't been there before, they seem to zone in on that and want to make sure you get the best service possible. And then when you return, they seem to remember you like you're an old friend. So I definitely recommend checking them out. They have a few more wines than some of the others. I would say they're along the same lines as Hawk Ridge. They are on those windows that you see on the building. They face Lake Warmog, which is beautiful. So if you're sitting inside, you can still have a nice view. They are open this time of year. They're not open 7 days a week. That happens mostly in the summertime. And they also have beautiful expanse of land, so you can sit outside, listen to live music when the warmer months come along. So lots to enjoy there. All right, this is again, oh gosh, I'm looking at a map and I'm trying to figure this out again, but they're more southern, kind of in the middle. I'm sure someone is saying, oh my goodness, this girl, she doesn't know her geography. But if you are familiar with Connecticut, you will know where some of these locations are. Savino Vineyards is in Woodbridge and Stapa Vineyard is in Orange. Savino Vineyards is small. I say small but mighty. Beautiful place. I went there, it was almost 2 summers ago for the first time. Beautiful, beautiful place. Great wine. My friend had a slushy. I'm not a slushy person, but she said it was refreshing and delightful. And I had a glass of white wine. Sadly, I can't always remember which white wines I had, but I know they had a couple to choose from. So we sat, I say down below. So as you see the nice red building, there's a hill there, and we sat down under the shade because the sun is not my friend in the summertime. I'm a little fair-skinned. So we sat in the shade, we had our wine. Great time, lovely people, lovely property. So definitely check them out. Down the road is Stapa Vineyard in Orange. And they opened during the pandemic, which is very brave. And they are run by a family, sisters and their father. And I wish I had taken better pictures in the sense that these don't do it justice, but it's a beautiful property. They have expanded over the last couple of years since they opened. They've been having even private events where they're closed down and they, decorate the whole vineyard. So I definitely recommend checking them out. They're just so nice, and the wine is delicious. Their winemaker is actually the same winemaker as Paradise Hills, but the wine is very different. So you can see they have different styles of making it, and definitely check them out. Okay, I believe this is my last slide of my visits through Connecticut. So Quilla's Nest Vineyards in Newtown. If we had the full hour, I could talk to you about them for the full hour. They are so unique. They opened also during the pandemic, which again, very brave. The property itself, I need to get better pictures, but hopefully you get the idea. So the left corner here is a beautiful pergola, and they call it the Arabian Nights. And it's quite lovely because they're up on a hill where they're located. Um, you can reserve the space, I think, when it's like this time of year because it's enclosed. They also have another space on the left of that, which has a fireplace and it's quite lovely. Has outside inside features, and you can reserve that. They have igloos that are up. If you see the picture below, I had to write this down, it's a sconset hut. There may be another word in that title. So it's quite a unique building. It doesn't take up that whole space, so it's actually kind of small inside. So they have expansive fire pits, these Adirondack chairs, and then, as many of you may have seen, a lot of places are doing these igloos where you can sit inside them and they're heated, especially in the winter months. So it gives people opportunities to sit and enjoy wine and not be frozen. They have a lot of food trucks. They've done art installations there as well. They support the community. Every week, I'm telling you, if you're on their social media, almost every day, they're talking about they're open Wednesday through Sunday, and every single day has an event. So if you want to try something along with their wine, you can definitely find it there. So I definitely recommend. Jones has a waterfall. So I always tell everyone, if you follow my social media, the Nutmeg Nose, you will see a lot of pictures of this waterfall at different times of the year. Pumpkins in the fall, obviously the water with the, beautiful greenery in the spring and summer. It's wonderful. And I like the rosé. That is why you see the rosé in a lot of my pictures. But they have a lot of wines to offer. Unfortunately, they are closed right now. They will open again in the spring. They are having a big Valentine's event, but it's sold out. So I'm not sure why I'm mentioning that, but if you already know about it, maybe you're going. Anywho, beautiful property. They are a working farm, so they are open like for Christmas trees in the winter and pumpkins in the fall and other types of agriculture, if you will. So I definitely recommend checking them out if you have not. It's a beautiful place, great wine, great people. I have a few friends there, and definitely, again, recommend checking them out. All right, so I have some tips for visiting wineries. Now, my tips may be things you already are like, yeah, I know that. Or maybe they're new to you. And if you have your own tips, feel free to put them in the chat and we can share them later because we can all learn from each other. So here's what I tell people. Do your research. I say that because, again, I went to a winery an hour and 15 minutes from where I live and it wasn't open. Don't do that. Luckily, it was a good adventure and a nice weather day, but don't do that. So you want to check on the websites and social media about hours, the wines they have, just in case you have certain preferences, and maybe protocols they have. Some allow food, some don't. Get into that in a moment. I say pack your mask. I don't think there's any mandates right now in Connecticut for wearing a mask, but I always say whatever your comfort level is, just it can't hurt to pack it away and bring it with you. They're not that big. Remember to bring your passport. We'll talk about that in an upcoming slide. I think it's the next one. And of course, we're talking about alcohol. So if you're going to go places, try to have a designated driver or take a Lyft or an Uber. One group in one of my talks said what they do is they have 4 or 5 friends, and during the summer, they go on different weekends and they alternate. Someone's the designated driver, and the rest of the folks chip in and buy a bottle or 2 of wine from the wineries they visit, and that person gets the wine bottles to enjoy later, and they rotate. So just an idea I'm throwing out there if you have some friends who like to drink and you want to all go together and be safe. Wear comfy clothes. I still have this on here and it almost makes me laugh. I don't think anyone goes to a winery and says, I want to be uncomfortable. But it's interesting to me to find out that people don't realize that, as you can see from the picture on the left there, there's not a lot of even ground at wineries. They do, some of them have pavement and driveways, but many of them don't because they're farms. And so I always tell people, be careful what you're wearing for shoes. You don't want to sink into the ground. It's mostly for the ladies. And you want to walk around and you want to see the property, and you also want to stand at the tasting bar because a lot of them are open for that again. And again, you'll be standing. People say you don't sit at the tasting bar. And I was like, not typically, but something to keep in mind. So whatever's comfy for you. I say bring snacks and water, but check with the wineries first. I think since the pandemic, a lot of the wineries had to have food um, in order to be open. There were some regulations. I don't remember them all now. So a lot of them have their own like charcuterie boxes and other options like that. And some of them actually do have little restaurants or little, menus for you to order from. So they prefer you don't bring your own food. However, I always say, even if they sell water and food there and they don't want you to bring it, you can have it in your car. I mean, if you want to bring it with you to eat before you leave there, they're not going to kick you out for doing that. They just don't want you to bring it on to the inside or on the property of the winery. So, not that big of a deal, but just always good to check first. My last tip is to go with an open mind. And I say that because as someone who has been a lifelong, I don't like oaky Chardonnay person, I learned, and a lot of you probably already know this, that there is something called unoaked Chardonnay. I think I maybe knew about it, but I just thought Chardonnay and I just kind of, turned my nose up. Well, I happen to have Stonington Vineyards here on the left, and they have what they call sheer Chardonnay, which is made in stainless steel tanks as opposed to oak barrels. So I went to a tasting one time and I saw it and I thought, okay, it was delicious. So if I had said, oh, no, I don't want to try that, I would have missed it. So my thought is if you say to yourself, I'm really a red drinker, I don't want any white, you never know. Try it. If you don't like it, no problem. You've had a little taste and now you know. But anyway, that's just a little tip I'd like to share. Okay, so when you're at a winery, the first thing you're going to probably do is go to the tasting room and you're going to meet some lovely people. And I have actual lovely people in the slide in the middle there and the picture. Two of them still work there at Stonington Vineyards. Kylie on the left got married and she left us and went to Virginia. However, Josh in the middle and Susan on the right are both I guess you call the tasting room managers. I know they have much more proper titles, but they are fabulous. And pretty much anytime you go, you're going to see one or the other. And they want you to have the best experience ever. So you'll tell everybody else how much you loved going there. But they are working. And even though it's kind of a fun job, it is hard work. And I always say now that it's getting more crowded again and picking up, people are, jamming themselves in that tasting room bar and you know how people get when they drink. So I always say just try to be respectful and mindful of them. And the nicer you are to them, I promise you'll get rewards for it. So just keep that in mind. And the last thing we already talked about was perusing the vineyard and property. So make sure you go and check out these beautiful properties. That's one of the things I always encourage. And I even say, if you have someone that wants to go with you, but they don't really drink and they're like, why would I go to a vineyard? I don't drink. Well, I have someone in my life like that. And I used to say, she used to say to me, oh, you just want me to be your designated driver. I've been nice, but that's not why I was inviting her. So I always say now, if someone wanted to come with me and they don't really drink, my thought is we can bring a picnic. We'll have to go to a vineyard that allows that, of course. And then I'd buy a bottle of wine to take home later. So I'd be, doing patronage to a winery, but we'd still get to see the beautiful property. And what's better than that? So just something to keep in mind. All right. So the banner is on top of my screen. So I think it says the farm wineries at the top, but I wanted to quickly point out, for those of you who are familiar with the passport program, there used to be a physical passport, lovely picture there. I have mine from 2018. And the passport program was a really neat thing that the Connecticut Farm Wineries Coalition came up with. And what you would do is you take the passport, and during the time the passport was in progress, it was from May to November, you would go to each winery that was located on here. There are over 40. So you may not get to all of them. And you would go and you would get, and you would get a stamp. I don't know that anyone, if I hold this up, can see my stamp, but you would go around and at the end of the season, you could hand in your passport at any of the participating wineries and be entered to win lots of great prizes, big trips, cater trips to wineries, as well as trips to like Spain. That's pretty cool. Never won anything because I never got to all of them in one season. However, now because of the pandemic, there's an app for that. So you can see there's a picture of the app that's from the Connecticut Wine Trails website and the Connecticut Farm Wineries. When you go into this app, it's free. You download it from wherever you download your apps, put it on your phone. All the wineries are already pre-populated. You don't have to go look for them and search for them. You just have to find them when you go visit them. And you basically can check in. You see my little slide there. Basically, you'd find, I think that's Savino Vineyards. And I hit check in. And once I hit check in, it says you have successfully checked in. Now, here's the thing. I want to tell you all that it's a great program, and it is, but it's different because it used to run May to November. This one just seems to keep running. So I'm not really sure there are prizes. I'm not really sure when it ends. I've tried to look up information. I can't find any. So I think it's kind of a work in progress as an app, but it's still a fun thing to have. And it might give you an idea of what's out there. So definitely check it out. However, as I say that, and on the next slide, oh, I've changed this slide. All right, we're going to talk about one more thing before I talk about something fun. Sorry, folks, updating my slides. So you don't have to read this right now. You can maybe go back in the recording and watch it. But I always want to let people know that there's a difference between the Connecticut Wine Trail and the Connecticut Farm Wineries Passport Program. There are 25 wineries on the Connecticut Wine Trail, and it's something they have to apply to be part of. You have to meet certain criteria. The Passport to Connecticut Farm Wineries consists of over 40 farm wineries in Connecticut, which basically does include the Connecticut Wine Trail wineries. So when people say, there's only 25, how are there 40? Well, some of them either decided not to apply or they don't meet the criteria. So that's why they're not part of the Connecticut Wine Trail. But it doesn't diminish anything about the importance of their wines. There's nothing like better quality if they're on the Connecticut Wine Trail. That is not true. And the Connecticut Wine Trail Winery program would tell you that that's true. So basically, I just want you all to know, the Connecticut Farm Wineries Passport has an encompassing amount of wineries, and the Connecticut Wine Trail has 25. But you're going to learn there are actually more wineries than that, and we'll talk about that in just a few moments. Okay, so dun, 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 I said there was no passport. I lied. Not exactly. There is this passport, and this passport, the Connecticut Winter Wine Trail, is actually run. Now here's something fun. Run by the Connecticut Wine Trail. So this is not the same as this passport. Yeah, this is getting fun, huh? Well, anyway, skip to the good part. So there are only 12 wineries on this little passport. And it started in January 8th, runs to April 12th, 12 wineries. Come on, folks, we can get to 12 wineries in like 3.5 months, right? Sure. Last year, I was able to do it, and I handed in my passport. I got buckus, but there are awesome prizes to win, $6,000 in prizes. I don't know if I'm holding this up right. $6,000 in prizes. So basically, you just go to each one and actually get a stamp. Like I was talking about, I have a stamp from one of them recently. Actually, I went to 2, but I still have 2 stamps. But I put here the 12 wineries. I know you're not going to memorize them, but you can go to the Connecticut Wine Trails website, ctwine.com. They will list them there for you. And then once you go to one and get the passport, you will know where they are. So I don't know. I think it's exciting. So I think even though we're talking about wineries and some of them are closed in the winter, they have a passport program during the winter. So it's kind of fun. Okay, so I am talking about, I realize I make this a very confusing slide. So I've been to winery events, and I wonder if many of you have been to winery events as well. And they're a lot of fun, and I'm listing just 3 quick ones here. I go to Stonington Vineyards every summer, almost every summer, for their movie night in the vineyard. It's usually the last Saturday in August. This past year, it was Top Gun, and the year before that, it was Dirty Dancing. Lots of fun. You get a glass of wine, you bring your picnic, hang out, and watch the movie out in the vineyards. It's very nice. Several years ago, I went to a s'mores and wine event at Preston Ridge Vineyard. Really fun, really great. I haven't had it since, so I guess I might have been the only one who felt that way, or maybe because of the pandemic. So if you see events like that, I recommend checking them out. And then Hate Brown Vineyard, which is the oldest vineyard in Connecticut, they had an event last spring, which was basically, what do you call it? I'm about to say craft beer. No, not craft coffee. Oh gosh. Well, anyway, if you like coffee, it was, oh, cold brew coffee. I see it on the list there. And they had a gentleman come in to talk about cold brew coffee and the coffee with the wine. The winemaker there, he put together this cocktail and we got to make it as part of the event. And it was actually very tasty for someone who's more of a pure wine person. I really enjoyed that mixed drink. So it was a different kind of activity. So what I'm trying to do in this new year of 2023 is talk about upcoming winery events. So I know this is probably hard to read, so I will do my best to quickly go through it. Basically, Stonington Vineyards has a winter music series. It's every Saturday from January to April from 1 to 4. There's no charge. You just have to be of age to drink. And you go and you get some wine and you listen to some music. So that's a fun thing that they are doing. Aquila's Nest Vineyard, like I said, they have a lot going on. So if you were nearby them and you wanted to go to an event, and today's the 7th, the next couple days, they've got a lot going on. So I like to show they post that on their Instagram. This Week in Paradise, Paradise Hills, great name, great way to talk about your vineyard. Started yesterday, in fact, and runs through next Monday. They have a Galentine's sparkling wine, easy for me to say, and cupcake pairing. And I actually did that last year with a friend of mine. The cupcakes are really tiny, for all those who are watching our weight. They're really tiny and they're really delicious. And they have 3 different sparkling wines there and they pair them and it's outstanding. So if you're in the area or you know someone who lives near there and maybe you can't get to it, tell them to check it out. Rosa Bianca Vineyards has an event that is I think it's maybe next Friday. I'm sorry, I have the box of all of you in front of this and I don't want to move it anywhere, but I know they have a candle making and sipping wine event, and I think it might be next Friday. So that's something to maybe sign up for. And then Hopkins Vineyard has a lot of live music on Sundays. So I wanted to let people know up in that area that they have live music on Sundays, and go check that out. So that's just a couple of things. There are way more events going on than that. So obviously, if you have a certain winery that you visit and you enjoy, check out what they've got going on, or I'll tell you ways to find out more soon. Okay. So I wanted to update this and show you the billions and billions of wine clubs. Yeah. Well, I couldn't find them all, but I know many of them are starting wine clubs. So the 2 I always talk about in the past have been the Cellar Society at Stonington Vineyards, because I'm a member. And basically you buy a case of wine one time and you're a member. And then you get discounts on cases of wine itself. You get a free tasting or a free glass of wine when you go. And sometimes I think you're allowed maybe to get a free glass or tasting for a guest. You get to know about events. You get some discounts on, like I said, on events and wines. Jonathan Edwards has 2 clubs, the Grape Nuts and the Jed's Reds, which Grape Nuts is red and white wine, and Jed's Reds is, as it states, only red wines. And basically, you can order the wines and they come 4 times a year. You either have them sent to you or you can pick them up at the vineyard. And there are a lot of perks to being part of that club as well. So the new club that I added is a new club that just started at Paradise Hills Vineyard. I'm not a member, but I try to put some of the details about it, but you can just go to their website and it's all right there because I stole it from their website. Not proud, but I figured I had to share with you guys somehow. So it looks like they've got it's a 3-bottle mixed wine club membership, and it looks like there's some great perks. So if you like a winery and you're not sure if they have a wine club, just ask them. I'm going to keep doing my research, so I'll try to have more soon on here. Has anyone ever participated in Harvest? I know I can't see you raise your hands, but you can nod and we can talk about it after. But if you haven't participated in Harvest, I recommend putting that on your little bucket list for wineries if you're into wine. I went to Preston Ridge Vineyard a couple years ago. It was quite a warm day. It was in September. They usually do their harvest during the fall, so September, October is usually the time frame that they do it in. And a lot of them will announce, Preston Ridge always announces on their website, ask people to sign up. I was part of the white grapes crushing and picking, as opposed to the red grapes. That was a separate time. And I was there for 3 hours, and I met a woman there that I still am friends with. And the thing about it, it was a lot of hard work. I really got to understand how much hard work it was. So at the end, we're all sweating and tired, and I turned to the winemaker and his sister, and I said, so this was really cool. And they looked at me and said, okay, thinking she has heat stroke. But they said, you may be grateful for this opportunity, but boy, does it help us out. They said they had 88 volunteers that day, and it took 3 hours to pick all the white grapes. If they didn't have the volunteers, it would have taken 3 days to pick all the white grapes. So that kind of put things in perspective. So it gave me another insight into the winemaking process and a new appreciation for my wine. Also, I have in there volunteering. Now, this was kind of pre-pandemic. I know a lot of events would come up and wineries needed people to help them out. I haven't seen that as much now, but you never know. So my thought is, if you're interested ever in participating at a winery, it's almost like working at one, but not. Look for opportunities to volunteer, because I think a lot of times if a vineyard has a large event, they might need more people than their actual staff to help them out. So it could be a cool experience. I hope to do that one day. All right, so how to support Connecticut wineries. I threw this in during the pandemic, but I think it still rings true. So obviously, the number one way to support Connecticut wineries is to visit. Then buying wine online if the winery provides that opportunity, or as you see my little picture below, a lot of wine shops in Connecticut have a Connecticut wine section, because for those of you on the call who are not from Connecticut, our grocery stores do not sell wine. That's a whole other story. We'll talk about that another time. So basically you have to go to a package store or a specialized, wine store to get your wine. And a lot of them are having Connecticut wine sections, which is really nice, because if you like a wine and you can't get to that winery, but you really want to have Connecticut wine, you're still supporting them. And you can go to your local store. Write a review on Yelp, because I'm noticing a lot of the wineries, they may not have like a review section on their website, but what they'll do is if someone reviews them on Yelp, they'll take that and they'll put it up on their website separately, or on their social media, and say, we got this recommendation. So people really appreciate that. It's free, and it's a nice way to show support. And then I always say, recommend your favorite wineries to your friends and family, which I feel like I do this every time I give a talk. I'm recommending. And then the easy way to do things is like pages and posts on social media. I mean, it's free. Takes 2 seconds to click like, and it has a big impact. So just keep that in mind. All right, so I say get connected. ctwine.com is the Connecticut Wine Trails website. They also are on Facebook, Instagram. They're on Twitter. I'm not, so I take their word for it. And they have newsletters that they send out. That's how I found out about the blogger program that I participated in. So if you want to sign up for that, and that's a great way to find out about the 25 wineries that I was telling you about, and to find out who those 25 wineries are. And then also the vineyards themselves, a lot of them have newsletters now. I can start rattling off all the names, but a lot of the ones I mentioned have newsletters. They don't inundate you with tons of emails. You might get one a month or one a week, depends on how much they have going on. But it's a nice way to stay connected. Obviously, being virtually connected to the wineries helps you know about things ahead of time. Details in advance. Maybe they can't update their website right away, but they can pop a little post on a social media site. Then I also used to tell everyone about these winning prizes for social, on social media, and everyone's like, sure. Well, I found one that's recent, right here in the middle from Paradise Hills, and I threw one from Aragoni Winery over on the side. It's old, it's done now. You can't participate, but it's a way of showing that people at the wineries do have these contests. I didn't make this up. I used to get people saying, sure. They're not as often as they might have been. I want to say again, pre-pandemic, but a lot of times you can win, like $100 Paradise Hills Vineyard gift card. And when Aragoni did theirs, it was you could take a photo at the winery, tag them, and then you could win all kinds of fun Aragoni swag. So definitely worth it to take your pictures and tag the wineries, and you never know what might happen. So these are what I call my secret wineries. Reason why I call them secret is because they're not on this or this or the wine trail itself. They're just, how do you find them? Well, I always say you can use the almighty Google. That is one way to find them. Or, as I found out about most of these, through word of mouth. So if friends know about a winery that's opening, they will probably tell you. I have had the great pleasure of going to all three of these. I'm going to start on the right side and be weird, but Crystal Ridge Winery in Glastonbury is basically one of the closest ones to where I live, and it's up on a hill. And I always say you have a whole view of the Hartford skyline, and usually I would see faces going, "Okay." Still very nice. I mean, Hartford's a good city, and maybe it's not like New York City, but it's a good city, and it's a good skyline, and it's pretty when the sun sets. So, anyway, you can sit on the deck there and watch the sunset, drink your wine, and all of that. They have a lot of live music. They have a lot of fun events. They have vendor fairs. They have food trucks. They are open. I think they used to be open every single day, but I think this time of year they may not be. I know they may have changed their hours recently, but definitely go and check them out. Lots of different great wines there. Worthington Vineyard and Summers just opened Mother's Day last year. So I found out about them at one of my wine talks. Someone came up to me, and I usually have handouts I give in person. So if you ever come to an in-person talk, I'll have handouts for you. But they had taken one of my handouts, flipped it over, and wrote Worthington Summers. It's like, I don't know what that means, but thank you. They didn't tell me what it meant. So all of a sudden, when I was giving a talk at the Summers Library last year, I got an email from a woman who worked at Worthington Vineyard. And I was like, ding, 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 it's all coming together. So I went to visit them because I figured I'm going to be talking about wineries. I'm going to be in Summers, so might as well talk about the winery in Summers. I can't even do the justice. That picture's, but there's 99 acres of property. It's gorgeous. They only had, when I was there, and they're still open right now, so I don't know if they've added more wines. They had 4 wines at the time. They may have more now. They did some seasonal things like a slushy and stuff, but they've been having events. They're growing, and definitely check them out. Rose Vineyards and Winery is in North Branford, and they are, I don't want to say right down the street from Rosa Bianca, but they're maybe 15 minutes from them. So it's not too far. So basically, if you went to Paradise Hills and you went to Rosa Bianca and then you had someone drive you to Rosa Vineyards and Winery, but they're also on top of a hill. I know that picture really doesn't look that way, but it is. I just recently went there in November to watch them light up the vineyard for the holiday season, and it was really fun. A little cold, but really fun. They have a big building you're looking at the pergola that you walk under towards the building. So I wanted to show you the vines. They have lots of reds and whites. I don't think they have sparkling, but I'm kind of trying to remember. They might have. They have food, so I guess you could still bring your own, but I'm not sure they want you to. They have I think it's Thursday or Friday night, they have a special pizza. So they announce that on their social media, but it's a great place. Go check it out. And oh, by the way, there's more. There are 2 more secret wineries. Now, Stapa Vineyard I already talked about, but they're still secret in the sense that they are not on the wine trail and they are not on the passport. However, the minute I tell you guys this, they'll probably become on one of them, and then I'll look silly. But for now, that's how it is. Now, Kingdom of the Hawk, North Stonington, I'm letting you in case you already know. That picture that you're seeing, was taken at Saltwater Farm Vineyards because Saltwater Farm Vineyards is expanding and they're opening a new winery, Kingdom of the Hawk, in North Stonington. Now, if you remember, Saltwater Farm is in Stonington, so they're probably going to be about 10 minutes from each other. And they're not open yet. They're going to open hopefully in the spring. I may have that wrong. One thing I didn't tell you about Saltwater Farm is they are known as the wedding winery. It's a beautiful property inside and out, and people like to have their weddings there. And it sounds like Kingdom of the Hawk is going to be similar. It's similar in style. So if you go to Saltwater Farm and then you go to Kingdom of the Hawk, you'll see they're similar in the type of structure and how they're designed. But I'm excited for them to open. Can't wait to see what wine they're going to offer and other things. So definitely they are on social media on Instagram. So if you follow Kingdom the Hawk, you can find out what's going on as it's happening. Okay, so these two wineries, I realize I don't even have this on my agenda, but we have two wineries in North Haven, Connecticut that are considered either micro or city wineries. Now, Valor Wines calls themselves a micro winery, and Small Batch Cellars, Kristen, the winemaker there, who's also the winemaker at Chimard Vineyards, for those of you familiar with Connecticut's wineries in Clinton, Connecticut, she calls her Small Batch Cellars a city winery. Basically, what it means is that they don't grow any grapes there. You're not going to see any vines. They're both in parking lots. It's not as pretty on the outside, but they both, Ray, who owns Valor Wines, it's a one-man operation. I think he hopefully has some friends who help him out, but he runs all things, makes the wine, sells the wine, opens the winery. Valor Wines is open Friday nights, Saturday, and then he added Sunday on. And like I said, one-man show. So there's limited hours each day, but always seems to be people going there because he's got events and all kinds of cool stuff. The wine is lovely. So definitely check Valor Wines out if you're in North Haven. And then Small Batch Cellars is run by Kristen, and I should have written down her last name. I think it's Parsons, Kristen Parsons. She and her business partner, Michael, she's the winemaker and visionary, and he's the muscle behind it, if you will. He's helping her build. They're going to build up, as they put it. So right now, it's just very expansive. It's that fireplace you see. It's got a lot of cool structure downward, but now they're trying to build on a restaurant, and they're going to build up and have like a rooftop. So maybe this spring or summer, people can eat outside up there. It's really unique. The wine is quite delicious and quite lovely. And Kristen still is the winemaker at Chimard, but she said she wanted to do wine her way, not the Chimard way. But I know what all that means, but it's very cool. So I recommend both of them to you highly. They each are friends with each other. They recommend each other to others. So definitely go and check them out. And I believe Small Batch is only open Friday nights and Saturdays at the moment. All right, I'm really not, this slide I eventually probably need to take down, but these are some of the fabulous wineries that are not on the Connecticut Wine Trail. So from the top left corner, we've already talked about Stapa. Then you see the picture in the middle with the bridge. That's the Aragoni Bridge. That's Aragoni Winery in Portland. Then Rosa Bianca Vineyards, which we've talked about. Below that is Hate Brown Vineyard. And I'm going to remember where it's located. Oh, goodness. Litchfield, I believe. They're the oldest winery in Connecticut. And if you ever went there in the past, and maybe you were like, I don't know if I'm going to go back. I heard that from others, so I'm just repeating knowledge. It's brand new in terms of they have new owners who are wonderful. I've met them. They have breathed new life into it. It's very airy and bright. They have events. They obviously have great wine. They're doing some little food things. I think they brought in a chef to help out with some of that. It's amazing. I haven't been in a while. I definitely want to get back as it gets a little warmer. But definitely check out Hate Brown if you haven't. Mulgo Sierra, that I sadly have this sign, and it's a beautiful property down in Ledyard, and so that's near Stonington, all of that. They have a lot of live music on the weekends right now. And then I have a picture of Crystal Ridge's wine glass, but Crystal Ridge, we've talked about them. Then we have Heartstone Farm and Winery in Columbia. I'm sorry, that's the only picture I posted there to fit in this grid, but it is a beautiful property, lovely inside and out, and definitely a good wine selection. Brignolle Vineyards, the wrought iron fence you see there. That is a property that if I had a bigger picture right there, it would look like Hawk Ridge. It's huge. Gorgeous marble stairs that lead up. Lots and lots of wine to choose from. They have a big patio plus a lot of outside downstairs seating, as I call it. So definitely, if you're in, I believe it's East Granby, check them out. And then I have this, I really have to get a better picture. It says tasting room. That's RD Winery in Enfield. They are attached to a brewery. The sister owns the winery, the brother owns the brewery. Really neat place. I don't know why they're not considered a micro winery because I've never seen any grapes there. I've seen a big parking lot. But I have to say, they have a really neat way of doing wine flights. So you definitely have to go there and check it out. All right, look at me. I'm flying right through. All right, so what I like to tell people is I don't want to just say, hey, I hope you remembered everything I just said to you and take it with you. So I like to tell you that I have some resources for you, and I do. So I am known as the Nutmeg Nose. And the reason I am known as the Nutmeg Nose, when I started giving wineries talks, I had no idea what to call it. So I used to say, take a trip on the Connecticut Wine Trail with Michelle Griffiths. Well, finally, the Connecticut Wine Trail reached out and said, please don't use our name. So I realized they're a business. They don't know me. I mean, I wrote for them, but, I knew a few people in terms of they didn't know me. And so I really appreciated where they were coming from. Then it was like, what am I going to call myself? So I have a brilliant friend who just, I don't know, off the cusp of his head said, you'll be the Nutmeg Nose. And I'm like, okay, what does that mean? Well, Connecticut is the nutmeg state. And he said, the nutmeg state with a nose for wine. And therein lies the Nutmeg Nose. So my talented friend Kim came up with my logo after a lot of me going, well, I want this and I want that. Poor girl. So that is my beautiful logo. And I am on Instagram only, not on Facebook as the Nutmeg Nose. It's hard enough for me to keep up with Instagram, but I have a lot of fun with it. I try to share like fun little quizzes, fun little, pictures. I'm trying to get a lot of reels up there now. So I hope if you're not following me on Instagram that you will go and follow me. Really appreciate it. And I always tell everyone, when I was looking for a job, I made a website, but I didn't think people wanted to hire someone called the Nutmeg Nose. So my first name's Michelle. I go by Shell. Last name's Griffiths. So there's a capital G, but I did it phonetically. So I'm Shell G Communications. And on my website, I have a whole section called the Nutmeg Nose, where, as you can see on the right there, I've got wine resources. That looks real pretty. Mine is a lot longer on my website. You can click on things, clearly, and I give you books, articles, websites, podcasts, so much more. So definitely go check it out. And then before I go further, I told Catherine I'm going to forget, and I don't want to forget. So we're in the library, remember? So I'm going to recommend 3 books really quickly for you. One, and these are all on my website, but Wine for Normal People, wonderful book. It's a heavy book, I'll tell you that. It's hardcover and it's dense in terms of lots of reading, but it's kind of like a good reference book. However, Wine for Normal People, written by Elizabeth Schneider, who is a sommelier, she has a podcast by the same name, Wine for Normal People. It is hysterical and so interesting. And I feel like I actually remember what she talks about because her and her husband, he's the normal person, she's the wine expert. They have a great banter. She always talks about wine from regions that she's visited. She will never tell you about a wine region unless she's visited it. So she definitely has knowledge. And it's just so delightful. So if you don't want to read a book, you can listen to the podcast. They also have a website. How am I doing this? All right. The next book I'm going to recommend is called Wine Folly. You can also follow them on Instagram at Wine Folly, and you can follow Elizabeth Schneider, Wine for Normal People, on Instagram as well. Wine Folly is more like the picture book for adults. And of course, I turned to something and I realize you all can't see this probably. But what it does, sorry guys. So what it does is it essentially gives you like a particular grape, tells you like the flavors you might taste, dominant flavors, the profile, where it grows, common styles, even tells you if it's expensive, not expensive. Should you store it in the cold? Should you not? So it's really kind of a neat little reference book in that way, picture book for adults. And a question I get all the time is there a book on Connecticut wineries? Why, yes, there is. And I didn't write it. Someday maybe. But this book is called A History of Connecticut Wine. And it's by Eric D. Lehman and Amy Naraki. Again, these are all on my website. I have not read it yet. I will admit that to you, but it is a small book, so I should be able to read it. I did go breeze through it a bit, and it was kind of fun because there are people in it that I have met, so I thought that was really neat. But it was written in 2011, I believe. And as I tell people, the minute you write about wine, it's probably going to change. So keep that in mind. But it's a good reference book. Well done in terms of what I have perused through. Definitely something to check out. So I want to make sure I recommended a couple of books to you as well as part of my resources. So I want to give you what I call my disclaimers, if you will. So this is just to make sure nobody leaves thinking that I work for, because I do not work for, or I'm affiliated with the Connecticut Wine Trail or the Passport to Connecticut Farm Wineries. For more information on the Connecticut Wine Trail, please visit their website, ctwine.com. And if you're interested in learning about any of the wineries or vineyards in Connecticut, beyond even what I discussed, please visit their website or social media for the latest and greatest information. So I leave you with 3 final thoughts. Be nice to the winery staff. I tell you, it's really important. Go with an open mind. My last one's kind of a combined one, so it's really 4 things. Be safe, and but most of all, have fun.